Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Zon Academy. So happy to have Dan Marrano back with us. And he's going to be speaking to us about mastering your digital toolbox, streamlining all on X, and implant workflows. Dan is a CDT and also the owner of Marrano Dental Arts. Dan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Fran. I look forward to speaking on this topic today. I want to get right to it because it's kind of a combination of all these previous webinars we did, these four with some additional information. So when I tell you, you could probably talk on this for an entire day, minimally 3 hours, 4 hours. That's not a joke. So we're going to be going right at it with the tons of information coming at you. The good news is we got a lot of slides, so you can come back and check it out later on the recording when they send that out.
We're going to be also having a live Q&A. So if you have
Oh,
any
okay.
questions, please type them in at the bottom of your screen at the Q&A section. And also we'll be having some polls and we'd love to hear from you. So when we put a poll question up, if you wouldn't mind answering, we would love that. I'm going to turn this over to you now, Dan.
Thanks.
Enjoy, everybody.
So the digital toolbox, it's all our digital technologies that we kind of have available to us and how we use them. So I'm not limiting to myself to one specific brand like 3Shape or exocad or full arch screws, printing, Zirconia, cam. You have to kind of all combine these to get the best final result, efficient and effective and obviously accurate out to your customers. So we do use a combination of these to get to our goal. Um, a few years ago, my brother had said this in Chicago. Everything has changed, nothing has changed, and there's nothing more true to our industry at any time, but especially today. Just because we have a new scanner doesn't mean we can't have to forget about the fundamentals. Or we have a new cam system now, we don't uh, take care of our fundamentals, zirconia and stuff like that. So remember this, like just because we have the intraoral scanner doesn't mean we still don't need verifications and stuff like that. So keep that in mind as we go through this. All in X digital conversions is something that has really taken off in our lab. We've been doing it about 4 or 5 years now. We started early on. It's basically you're taking your design, adapting implant positions. It can be a surgical case. You can be doing it the same day for immediate loading, next day, not surgical at all, almost always, almost fully digital. Um, and just all our all in X cases go through this. So it doesn't matter which part of it. We're not suddenly going to mix like this. We're all going into the digital environment with it. So the stages of a all in X conversion are pre-op records. We always try to start with pre-op records with an accurate bite. We get photos at every appointment, and I'll show you why it's important at every appointment. Scans, either the surgical scans, healed scans, revision scans, verifications. We have different types of verifications today. We have regular jigs, photogrammetry, the scanning protocols, IO Connect, Direct Arch. There's all these coming out currently as well. Temporaries and prototypes, and then your final restoration. And what all this gives you when you put it into the digital environment is predictability. And I've had many doctors come from analog to digital and tell me that was a much smoother workflow. Everything fits so much nicer. And they really appreciate what we do on the back end when they go to see it. So the pre-op records, we start with intraoral scans. We get a full upper, full lower, an accurate bite. And I'll talk about that in a minute. It could be a denture wash, whatever they have. If they don't have teeth, then do the denture wash or um, get something like that to kind of get their bite. Photos are very important. Here's a bite scan of a case that I like to show, and I don't just like to always show our successes. This was an extremely huge failure. Now, I went through and I pre-designed this case, and this guy was opened up so far, and what I didn't see was the teeth penetrating through the opposing arch. So he was open about 4 millimeters when we seated this. You really need to check these scans when they come in to make sure. Now, when I thought everyone was going digital, this is going to be the most magical thing in the world. All my bites are going to be perfect. That's certainly what the salespeople tell you. Try to talk to your doctors and the assistants about looking at the scans before they send them, because so often we get these, we most often see one side is poking through the other side way too far. So keep an eye and review these before you dive into your design. The photos necessary at every appointment. We ask for full face rest, full face smile, full face exaggerated smile, and a profile. Each one of those are important to us as a designer. Um, Facial scanners, we've gone years without them. We have some doctors who have them now. I'll show some of them and why they're helpful and not helpful at times. So photos, I find this important. It's straight on, head only, eyes looking into the camera. This is a stock photo from 3Shape. This is what it would look like if you were taking that picture. And we use that for alignment in 3Shape or exocad. I quickly threw this as an alignment in exocad. But I've given up. Everyone knows it's kind of frustrating sometimes aligning these 2D photos to a 3D image. So just in Windows Editor, I will rotate it, make it straight, and put some lines on it. And I use my skills as a designer to look at that and try to work with my design. Here's an example of a photo that, far away, his eyes were squinted. You couldn't really see the teeth that well. This one as well, he was looking off to the side. I love this one. We don't need the diploma in the background, just the face, so we could just see the teeth. This was asking for like a full revision, and you can't even see what I'm looking at. So keep that in mind as you're talking to your clients, your clinicians, the assistants about what makes a good photo. Blindly trusting the RX without the photo. I have been caught with this many times over the last handful of years where I trust that what they're telling me and I just go without the photo. In this case, I was told to follow the denture design. And they didn't even send me this. I asked for it afterwards because I was curious about how it looked, and I saw it was canted and the midline was off. And I was like, gosh, man, how did that happen? I knew I did a good design. I followed the denture design. So I asked if they had a picture of the denture, and the denture was canted as well. If I had had that photo of the canted denture the first time, we wouldn't have to be redoing the design again. So keep that in mind. Get your photos, so that you can avoid these kinds of mistakes. It's easier on the lab. It's better for the doctor, the patient, that they don't have to come back another time. So just always ask for the photos. Facial scans. I still say still take photos. Here are some facial scans. The one to my left, it was completely unusable. It came through this way. The one on the right actually was a shiny. It did work out. The teeth were aligned and everything, so I was able to use that. But just keep in mind, a facial scanner is not going to be the holy grail for you. Still ask for photos just as a confirmation of what you have going on. Sometimes these don't align properly to the model scan. So, you know, pre-op records. He wanted to dive into a case here real quick with the pre-operative records. And this was a case we did same day, immediate load. And she had these really short teeth. So I went in and did my design, and I did make this kind of rudimentary surgical reduction guide for them. There are plenty of videos or instructions on the groups on how to make a perio guide. This is all I really did. He flapped it, he marked the bone, and then trimmed the bone according to the guide. Here were the surgical records as they were coming in. The top left at the time, he was using a Yomi, so that was a fixated attachment for that, and we used that for our alignment points. So as we jumped through the scan with that, we kept using that to stitch our scans together. And at the very end, we got our iCam. And here was what she looked like when she left that day. That was our digital conversion, and that was her walking out that same day. I mean, that looked really good. She was ecstatic. We got rid of the gummy smile. The design is pretty much straight. And what you'll find is you do a good job on these designs and you nail the surgeries, the revisions are so much easier. You're not doing full-fledged redesigns. And a lot of times we even skip another prototype or trying. We're going direct to final because we're just matching up what we did on the surgery. Here are her healed records, upper, lower, bite scan, following the protocol. We have the implant position. We do ask for a 360 temp scan. These are intaglio attachments, digital arches sell some of them. It's just in case we have some alignment issues, we can use those in conjunction with the iCam or the photogrammetry scan to get a better alignment. And then here was her photos they sent us that day. This was her surgical temporary. And look how good, like these FP1s that you do, look how nice the tissue contour is. Look how well it adapted to that temporary. It's only going to be better in a final. I don't have final photos for this case, unfortunately, but this turned out really well. Here was our temporary design back to them just to make sure everything was all set, and they loved it. We went from this to final. Verifications are extremely important today. If you don't have some kind of digital verification method like a photogrammetry or an intraoral scan system, you still need to make that analog jig. And you can make a traditional analog jig. OptiSplint is a scannable verification jig. Um, then you got the photogrammetry, the PIC, the iCam, the micron mapper, the oral scan elite, which is like a combo intraoral scan photogrammetry, and the tuple, the IO scan systems. Again, they all seem to work well in their own way. Photogrammetry, I'm a big fan of, just because it doesn't require as much human interaction. My IO scanner is accurate enough. This was a study that was done a couple years ago. I like to show it because in here you'll see you can get quality results with an intraoral scanner, but you can also get disastrous, right? So we go from 21 microns to 815 when we're trying to stay below 100 is the number that has kind of been set the standard where photogrammetry ranges from 2 to 92. So keep that in mind as you're maybe being told, oh, I can just use my scanner. We have plenty of examples, especially when you're aligning photogrammetry, where you'll see the stitching of the intraoral scanner have kind of gone off track. And thankfully you have that photogrammetry for it, or if you don't have photogrammetry, you would have your jig. So here's the different types of photogrammetries. The PIC and the iCam, the micron mapper, and then the shining uh, Elite down there, which is, like I said, a combo unit with an intraoral scanner, which is nice. These other three only take implant position. And most of them only take implant position at the multi-unit level. Keep that in mind as well. And here's some of the intraoral scan kits that you can get. The IO Connect and the Nexus have been out for a little while. Implant Direct just released theirs. They all seem to work, but again, you're relying on the accuracy of the person scanning. The analog jig and the OptiSplint, or the traditional jig that we have, are not without inaccuracies in themselves. They have to be done. They are technique sensitive. They have to be done well as well. But if you're going to, well, here, I want to show real quick how we made that jig there, because we stopped cutting in between each implant and we started luting in the center of them. We just make a simple bar in 3 shape, and we just punch a bunch of holes through it. We don't even go through the entire bar process. We put the holes in it, and then we print that out and save it. And we use that in our almost fully digital workflow. So this was a doctor, he just got his Trios 5. He hardly even knew how to use it. And he took this case, he did his upper, lower with the denture wash, and then the bite. And the next set of scans, we did the DES. We used the DES intraoral scan bodies. He did the full tissue scan, and then a 360 lower denture wash scan. Right. So we stitched all that together and we stacked it on top of each other. And this is what we ended up with, the denture over the DES scan bodies. And here was our design for that case. And this is what I delivered him to try in. The direct to multi, lower full arch, and a verification jig. This was a different style we made at the time. I used to cement them in the bar and then cut between each of them. We got too many jigs showing back up in the mail, cracked in half, so that's why we went to the other style. But when he got this case, he had said how nice it was, how accurate it was. He couldn't believe how easy it was to put this in. And then we just take that jig. Maybe you print two. For a long time, we were printing two prototypes. One we would stain and glaze and make nice, and the other one we would just leave plain. And then they return the jig to you with the second one that maybe they made some occlusal adjustments on, and then you just put it on the patty. You pour the patty up, you pour the jig and patty, and put it on there, and then you just scan copy it, and then you're on your way to your final. So it is a nice workflow for doctors who don't have any kind of photogrammetry method to get accurate implant positions. So our pre-surgical design, now we're going to jump into CAD. Now this is where I am still primarily in 3Shape world. We use exocad to support our needs in 3Shape. We very much like this. We've always kind of been with 3Shape for a long time now. We click my poll question answer here. And then, but something to keep in mind, if you're making video changes, I always make them before I do my pre-design, so that it carries over and showing you how this works. It'll make more sense, but I'll save those models, say we're closing or opening the bite. I'll save those and then use those models as my, to do my pre-design. So in our pre-surgical design, and we're going to do an FP3 here. This was a recent case we did work on. We're going to create a tampon prepared model. And I add an extra molar on there. The extra molar is for our easy gum, not the pink easy gum that you get from Harvest. This is OutCAD easy gum. It's a design that you can add into 3Shape so that we can add tissue without actually adding a gingiva step. So we bridge that. And then when we get into design, and I wanted to show this, I had made a video. It was really too long. It was 22 minutes long from start to finish. But if you speed it up, then you're kind of missing some of the important steps. So I did some screenshots here too, so you guys can go back and watch it in the replay. We just digitally extract the teeth. Very much just chopping these right off. If I'm doing an FP1, maybe I'm just individually clicking each one and digitally extracting them. But for an FP3, I'm just taking huge chunks out. You can plane cut it if you want. When you get into the design, that number 2 tooth in the Smile Composer, I change it to a single tooth, number 1, and then you'll see the OutCAD Easy Gum come up as a tooth library option. And that is our gingiva that we're going to use for this case to attach to the teeth. And there's the tooth number 1, and there's the Easy Gum. This is not an expensive library. You just go to OutCAD's website and get that. It's very useful. And here would be our pre-design. We don't know the surgical plan. We know it's going to be an FP3. I leave my gingiva a little long usually, so it's easy. I think it's easier to maybe plane cut it later if you have to, or just morph it down. But this is our basic pre-surgical design. I'll take this, and when I get to the finalized step, you can save it here, and now it's all one piece as a monoblock. Now you could take this, and I'll show some of the other copy wax up workflows, and you could then adapt this to the implant positions as you get your records later. In this case, I'm going to show um, how we use the anatomy for reuse. And those that don't know, 3Shape, when you're done with the case, calls the folder anatomy elements. If you save that and rename it anatomy for reuse, you then can put it back into another case, and that design will be there. The full design will be there. So that is why we actually use the Easy Gum now, because if you were to do gingiva, gingiva is not saved in the anatomy elements folder, so you would lose your gingiva. So that's why we're using that extra Easy Gum step so that we don't have to redesign the tissue every time. And then you just explore the order of the case that you're working on, copy it into, and we build these and we save these case folders from the patient's name, and we save it and we pre-rename it anatomy for reuse, so it's ready for us when we get to the surgery. And the design tools for both 3Shape and exocad, most of us are pretty familiar with it. They're both highly effective. You get global positioning that's really nice in 3Shape, and then in exocad you have the chain tool, which is really nice, where you can click on teeth and kind of lock them into position. um, Both work really well. Again, we're 3Shape, so we still pre-design in 3Shape, but you can also take those wax ups and bring them into exocad and do the digital conversion if you want, which we do sometimes depending on maybe a library, or something like that. Or the wax up feature is a little bit quicker in exocad, as we'll show you that here. But again, both of them highly effective design tools. So this case that we pre-designed, here are our surgery scans, and they're kind of just floating there. This was a revision for the doctor. He had some implants failed. So he took that bridge off and he scanned the tissue with the desk scan bodies. And then he placed more implants, scanned the tissue with the desk scan bodies again, and then sent me his photogrammetry scan. So there's 3 scans here to kind of stitch back together. We save our scans in order as they're coming in. Our photogrammetry scan, our upper 1, upper 2, and then we do our alignments in exocad. I know the newer version 3Shape still has or has some newer, nicer alignment features than maybe pre 2023 and before. And you can certainly do these by opening up the previous case and aligning it. This is 2 times speed. But I like this, and it seems to I just like it. I like the colors that you see, so you know if you have good alignment. Um, it seems quick. I don't have to reopen the old case or a fake order or anything like that. So um, that is the first surgical scan to the preoperative scan. Now here's his second surgical scan. Now we're using those desk scan bodies as alignments instead of some other ways that we can show you. Um, But that's the kind of the breadcrumbs that are being left for us to put the pieces back together to keep the orientation of our pre-design, so we don't have to redesign this case. Here's his photogrammetry scan. You notice here, and I like to have like about 3. He did move. He changed that 1 MUA there, so it wasn't super gingival. And I saved the scene. That way, if we ever have to go back and get that, we don't have to go through all those alignments again. And then you just individually save these scans. We only need 2. We need the tissue scan and the photogrammetry scan. And there's our wax up we saved, and there's our alignment. And we're ready now to roll to the digital conversion. It's just thinking of like what you would normally do in analog world as a denture conversion. We're now doing it digitally. So we're going to do this one in the normal implant workflow. We're going to select our implant teeth and then our Pontics. Remember to add the number 2 Pontic. That's our easy gum, so we can bring our gingiva along with it. Import your scans that we aligned. take your anatomy for reuse that we saved from that you had saved in your folder and paste it into the new case folder. You line your scan bodies. What's nice about a photogrammetry is these are digital versions of the scan bodies. So when you go to your library, they're very much exact matches to each other. And what's nice about 3Shape is that you have all those categories and scan flags there that lists. If you have another multi-unit library that has a scan body that you need that's maybe not in, say, the desk library, you can go and select that because the MUA is just a cone. There's no orientation to it, so that you can go and select that from another library. I like to stay within that same library, so I'm not jumping between a bunch of different libraries selecting scan bodies. Now you're adjusting your tissue, or in this case, the easy gum. You're adjusting your gingiva to the tissue scan that was sent to you. And then we're adapting the implant positions. And then you're complete. I mean, these things are pretty quick. If you have a good pre-design and you have a good plan, these things work well. I like to pre-design as well because I like to spend a little extra time making sure that I've dialed in my design. I'm checking those photos. I'm making sure everything cants the midline, everything is correct. So I do like to pre-design. Even if you didn't know this was going to be an FP3 and the surgery plan was up in the air, FP1, FP3, then maybe you don't bring in that number two easy gum, or you just shrink it down to nothing during this stage so that it kind of eliminates within your design. So that is our digital conversion. And I mentioned some methods of alignment. You can't lose your alignment along the way. You would just be completely guessing because any of the um, pre-surgical data, like the teeth or whatever, they're all gone. So you would have no way to really align that back. One of the methods is fiduciary markers. Here's the desk fiduciary marker. You can have fixed guides. You can have mixed teeth and implants. Some doctors pull out some teeth and put some implants and scan bodies in, scan, kind of like that doctor did there with the scan bodies. Or you can use a denture wash as well over mainly like healing caps. There are a ton of fiduciary markers. They all work pretty well. We kind of put two at the deepest point of the palate. That seems to work the best. The problem is when you get to the lower, they kind of got one sticking out of the chin or a retromolar pad. What you'll notice is when they put them in the retromolar pads is that when they get to the other side, the scan becomes inaccurate. So I often like to ask them, what side did you start scanning on? And if they say the left side, that's the side I concentrate on aligning, because the other side often, by the time they get over there in the bloody field, it's misaligned. And speaking of bloody field, rough scans. We all get rough scans. It's just the name of the game. If you're doing a crown and bridge case and your margin has an artifact on it, maybe you don't have you're not going to fix that. But in this situation, I will do everything I can not to ask them to scan that patient again. And here's why. This is his day. This is what his day looks like. He's got quad zygos. He's got pterygoids. He's gone through all of this. And in the meantime, he's got his assistant telling him, she's got to go take a break, or she's tired, or the front desk complaining about someone in billing. And all this is going on. Maybe he's got a sedation and the monitor is beeping. I am not asking him to go back and scan something that I can fix. I'm sitting in my little ivory tower and I'm not going back. I'm going to fix that. I'm partnering with him and assuring him when he sends me that data, I'm going to get his case back. And that scan actually is not that important. We align, especially if you're doing photogrammetry. So if you're doing photogrammetry, this is just a palette, a tissue. We're going to have the implant positions on photogrammetry. So I use exocad to clean this up. Um, and I just need a blank slate so I can get something clean to design on top of. It doesn't have to be pretty. I'm just pulling, getting rid of the holes, doing what I can to make this a blank canvas. Now, if you want to, you can bring this back in the original rough scan as a preoperative scan so that you can see where the tissue level is. Oftentimes, like this was not, oftentimes you're not getting the tissue. Um, you're getting maybe a scan of the bone or something like that, right? So it doesn't even matter if it is tissue. You go around and I wiggle this in exocad and I look for little glistenings kind of in the scan, and that means it's kind of got a little artifact. I bring the implant photogrammetry in just to make sure I'm kind of beyond that. So, and that's my repair for there's like a little spot, fill that in. That is my tissue repair. That is now a clean slate for me to go into 3Shape or exocad or however you want, and to go and move forward so you don't have any errors in the middle of your design. Here's digital wax up copy. So I wanted to show you this. That's if you take your mono block or later or pre-design, maybe use denture. Some people use denture module to design these. I don't do denture module anymore because if you have to go back and make a revision to your design, you have to go back into the denture module. But in 3Shape, and I'm going to play them both at the same time. From start to finish, 3Shape was 5 minutes. You're about 3 minutes with exocad. You could design your monoblock in 3Shape and then convert it in exocad. That's completely okay too. We've done that. It does save you a couple minutes. Something like the smooth tool in exocad is like super smooth if you hold down the shift key. So it's very useful if you have a lot of bulk to get rid of. You can also plane cut your restoration. So you've already done in exocad and we're still plugging through here on 3Shape. It's only just another minute and a half or something like that. So it's not a big deal, but it's also nice to have two options. For some reason, if something was going wrong with the 3Shape wax up, I could then go over to exocad. So that is the wax up copy feature. If you were to take your monoblock pre-design and then convert it afterwards. And in 3Shape, there is two stages of it. You have to create the digital impression order, implant teeth only. And the reason for this is in model, you can't do the wax up copy. It has to be, or in digital impression, you can't do the wax up copy. It has to be a model. So we run it through the digital impression order. We align the scan bodies. We just hit next, save, close. And then we create the model implant wax up order and then import the MB preparation scan. Those MB preparation scans encode the implant position into that model. So if you do a preview, like in this case here, and you click the annotations, this is what would pop up, even though it looks like an empty scan. Your tooth numbers do need to match your original digital order to get that through. And that's just the extra step in 3Shape to run through. Um, Titanium bars. It is a fully digital pathway because you can cement this without a model. It's not a substitute for passivity. I see a lot of people talking about using bars because they don't have a passive fit. That's not a substitute. You will still have problems with that restoration down the road, broken screws, implant bone loss, stuff like that. So, but I don't do a ton of bars. It's becoming a little bit more popular in some cases, and maybe just because of Instagram or whatever. But I was outsourcing a lot of them, and I was just been so frustrated. Um, so I decided to work on this, and I previewed a little bit in the last webinar how to do this in 3Shape. I like to I have my design. I do my direct to multi-unit try-ins, and then we come back and we're ready to go to final, but now they add a bar. So we save this, and I always save this. Every case we go through, when we get to the finalized step, I save this before it actually punches the holes through it, so that we can bring it back later and reuse it when we need to. And so here I would create the bar order. And then I would bring my I'd bring my monolithic design in as an additional scan, and has the newer versions of 3Shape have the sculpt to additional scan. So I can exactly replicate the subgingival contours just by sculpting to it. Now, when I'm designing this bar, a nice feature is having the undercut tool on and the non-millable areas. I set the non-millable areas as somewhere just above 1, and I make sure there's no yellow or red or anything like that in my bar design. And then I do save that before it punches the holes through as an additional scan. And then here's what the bar would look like on this case that we made over the top of the monolithic. And then the next step is to create the zirconia to go over the top. So it's just a single tooth order. Now we bring the preparation scan as our bar design that we saved as an additional scan. The wax up is our hybrid design, our monolithic design without any holes in it. And then as an additional scan, I do bring the bar design with holes in it and the hybrid design with holes in it. And that'll help us put the holes in the zirconia towards the end of the design here. So you just walk through a normal crown and bridge case at this point, just a wax up copy. We mark a margin. It's a bar, but yes, we told it was a single tooth, but it is the bar. We mark the margin. We can turn undercuts on to make sure we're not there, not over any undercuts. The die interface, you'll want to check to make sure, whatever your milling strategy are, if you need to increase the drill compensation. When you get to the step of the coping, uncheck the enforcement. When I was working through this, I kept thinking my computer was freezing. I just learned you uncheck that, and then it'll let you proceed. Turn on the design that has the holes in it, and that's how I get the orientation for my access holes. That's where I know where to put my access holes, is with my original design that I maybe sent to the doctor. And then it cut the bar out. And that's what it looks like, the two pieces. And here it is, trying it in. Everyone likes the sound of this. And it dropped right in. This is the first time I ever tried this. And this is the workflow I'm going forward with anything that needs a bar that I've pre-designed monolithically. We're stuck. So full arch screws, we just did this webinar last month. I'm not going to go through the whole full arch screw webinar again. Just going to give you a brief overview. There are still screws coming. We just had Powerball 3.0 and there's some other screws that still haven't even put on this list yet. So just keep in mind, you might be asked at any time to manufacture a restoration with these screws. You have to be prepared for it, and that's why I go through all of this to make sure that I can mill it properly. Why do we use full arch screws? Eliminate cementing tie bases. You do have the potential for debonding, although in our lab, I don't think that's been a problem historically. As long as you have passive records, you typically don't have debonding if you follow the cementing protocol. And next month, we'll actually be talking about cementing protocol. So you eliminate the subgingival cement gap. If you have a return for shade or something, you don't have to go through and debond on a full arch. Nobody likes to put that thing back in the oven to do that. You have greater thickness, therefore strength, around the tie base. By eliminating it, you don't have to bulk out around that tie base. And then eliminating tie bases, also when you're down close to the gingiva, maybe you have an equigingiva multi-unit margin, you don't come up a little bit with the base of the tie base. And then it's a fully digital pathway to all NX. This is what the most important part of any of this really is. Because what's the biggest obstacle to fully digital all NX? It's the tie base and the model. And that's really what struggles the tie base in going with maybe a photogrammetry case, because you don't have a model. There are cement gaps. Even if you choose the thinnest cement gap, when you go to cement these, there's still a gap and it's still moving inside there. You can't really accurately cement these without a model. So can we print a model? Well, these are 3 different printers, three different monoresins. Some are more accurate than others, and some you couldn't dent that would never end up fitting. So keep that in mind. The way you can do it is to mill a PMMA bar that you designed and make an analog patty. This is not mine. I saw this on I think the 3Shape group years ago. You mill this bar and then you make an analog patty, then you have something to cement to. The problem, and you can see we do have high level accuracy with that compared to the photogrammetry. The problem with that is milling PMMA can be challenging. In this case, the screw doesn't fit. That one, it doesn't fit on the multi. There's a small gap there. It's because you have burr deflection. So you need to keep your tools sharp and your strategies. Sometimes we end up milling it twice. We just hit play on the thing twice. But if you keep your tools sharp, that usually helps with this as well. The challenges of tie bases, and these were all, I guess, successful cases that were posted online at some point, and I had noticed all the cement gaps. I mean, that's no good. I don't have a doctor myself that would have accepted this if they see these big cement gaps on there. Um, we know the problems with having cement and implant cases that can be caused. So without the tie base, you eliminate the issue with the cement. So in this case, we're going to turn to the desk screw. It's the new full arch screw that's been out, I don't know, a year or so, 19069, or the diamond-like coated one that's black, and that's the one here in the middle picture as well, and to the right, the 19269. I think it's neat that it's black because it differentiates itself from the other silver screws. You got pile of silver screws. Maybe you're doing a verification, in that case has a multi-unit screw. And which screws do you need at this point? So I've gone with black screws when I use the desk screw from now on. If you still need the tie base, we go to the desk 15007. It's been the tie base we've been using forever, it feels like. But all our temporaries and prototypes are still direct to multi-unit. I don't have to cement those every time I send one out. Certainly if the doctor's printing, he doesn't want to have to cement those every time. So we can use the direct to multi-unit for the entire process and then switch to the tie base at the end. And again, if you're switching in exocad and you've pre-designed this, in exocad, it is a bit easier than 3Shape. You can just go back in, you click on each one, you change the implant, and then you have to remember to your abutment bottoms to go in there and just hit OK so that it taps to it. And that's all it takes in exocad. So that is a nice feature. You just go back in the same order. In 3Shape, we've kind of learned not to change the library in the middle of a design. So this again is why we save these at the finalization step. We always save this mono black design. So we save the as STL, and then we just walk through the wax up copy feature with a different library. Again, it's the multi-unit, it's a cone, so you can change the library. So in this case, we would change the desk 15007. We're going to tie base here. And then you would want a model, and you bring in your MB preparation scan from that original order, and then your saved monolithic design. Remember to use the same implant numbers because you'll get to maybe right before the insertion path and it'll give you an error. So, and then you just walk it through, and then there's your tie bases on the end. It's super simple. It only takes a couple of minutes. No need to redesign this and no need to worry about losing your previous design. So just keep that in mind when you're maybe changing between libraries from multi-unit. 3D printing. This stuff is still coming at us constantly. We like 3D printing all our provisionals. We don't try not to mill them for speed and efficiency. It is more detailed and precise. I'm not necessarily say it's more accurate, but you get more details out of it. You have low limitations. It's predictable, cost effective. I save our mills, our roll-ins for milling the zirconia, and then I'll print the provisionals. And all temporaries and prototypes are 3D printed. So speed and efficiency. This was from back when we did the Flexera webinar. I don't know, it seems forever ago now, but it was just last year. You can mill a bridge in 2 hours and 11 minutes, or you can print one in 34 minutes. I mean, what are your choice? When you're doing these digital conversions, maybe you're overnighting it to the doctor, which we do sometimes. Doctors don't have printers, or they're printing it with the patient in the chair. You don't have 2 hours, right? And many of the doctors that I work with say they offer the patient to come back the next day, and most of them want to stay. We even had a power outage here one time where we couldn't complete the case. We said we'll finish it when the power comes back on, and the patient wouldn't leave without her design. So unfortunately, we weren't able to finish that case for them. They had to go somewhere else. So printing is the only real way to get there. And then when you scale, it doesn't really add that much more time. So in the milling world, I've now milled 3 bridges in 6 hours, or I printed 14 more bridges and still the same 34 minutes. So when you scale, you're not really adding more time. The details and precision are nice because it has less time of finishing at the end. You can get this out quicker. You don't have to worry about it. This case I liked because it had the diastema that the patient wanted, and the milling, it fills that in. And the same thing with the embrasures on the lower bridge. This comes out just like that. You just smooth off the little nubs, and you're ready to go. You don't have to do any green state finishing on the PMMA. So when it comes to temporary prototypes, there are some options. You can't just use any resin. Asiga is validated for the Rodent Titan. They have the Rapid Ceramic that just came out, and Flexera Ultra Plus. Sprint Ray has Onyx Tough 2. And Formlabs, I had just reached out and just learned that they have premium teeth, and in open mode, you can also use the Rodent Titan. So these are all options that you have that are more than capable of supporting an all-in-X temporary. I say temporary and prototype. I don't believe in definitive printed restorations in this scale at this point. Even some that are validated don't give you necessarily the longevity. You can reprint them easy, but some doctors just choose not to go through the hassle of having to see that patient every time it breaks on a Saturday afternoon or something like that. Make sure when you're 3D printing, follow the IFUs, use validated printers and resins, follow mixing times if there are any. Use the validated printer profiles. Don't select one resin and another one. Follow the cleaning protocols. Use validated curing units. Remember, resins in the uncured state are can be toxic. Use gloves, all this kind of stuff. Make sure you take care of working with these materials, and they will provide a long-lasting restoration and efficient workflow for you. When you get away from these protocols is when you start getting into gray areas, and we stick to the validated IFUs. 3D printing has low limitations, designed for printing versus milling. There is no drill compensation in printing. So when you're designing your all-in-X bridges, you should fill in your lingual embrasures. Don't leave any holes. Over time, some of us have learned, well, that won't mill. Well, it will print. So if you're sending a doctor a prototype and you have a little gap in the embrasure, that will print, and then it'll end up being weaker in that area. So keep that in mind. Fill in your design and try to learn to predict your printing versus milling. All right, don't get yourself in a pickle because we can print anything pretty much at this point. You can have 50-degree angles, whatever it is, but you can't mill that. And in this case, I almost got myself in the pickle. The doctor asked me to angle this out the facial through the gingiva because the angle was too great out the lingual. So I did it. I printed it. He said it was great. Go to final. And it took me a while to get this to mill. I eventually put this into 52 DCI with the full C clamp. And in hyperDENT, I was able to get this to mill like that. It was a struggle. It wasn't happy about doing it, but it did work out. So keep that in mind when you're designing some of these and maybe the manufacturing restrictions you might have when you go to Zirconia. Finishing prints, I just use 2 burrs. Well, just the one bird or one carbide bird or smooth off the supports, and then maybe a Scotch-Brite to get rid of any printer lines if you need to. Finishing them, you have a wide range of materials. Is kind of how long you want it to last. A lot of the offices are using OptiGlaze color right now because they're just painting some red or pink on there and then putting it in the patient's mouth because they need to, they're on a time crunch. When we go to more longer term temporaries or provisionals, maybe we're using the easy gum to know that it'll last. We're not going to brush it off or something like that. And we've been using some of the N2 free glaze from Rodin that works very nice as well. So All-in-X digital night guards. This was something we started. It was actually told to me, and then I tried to figure out how am I going to do this with no additional scans or impressions. It is a value-added service to the lab and the doctors, and it protects the patient's investment. This is the article we did with Zon last maybe 2 months ago now. And then we'll go through the workflow here. It works really, really well. You're not asking for any new scans. You're not waiting for this. This is delivered at the same time as I delivered the All-in-X. Again, we save our monolithic design. We run through the Splint Studio. We design our night guard, and then we use the Sega and the Zerlux night guard and Splint flexible. We like the flexible, and we'll show you why we like the flexible. And it's nested in a Sega. We use the ultra gloss tray, which makes it virtually transparent, translucent. And then we cure here with the auto flash with nitrogen. We like the nitrogen. We think it gives a little bit more clear cure, and maybe less tacky that you have to worry about maybe scrubbing off or something like that. So we use the auto flash, and then we use the key polish kit. Just follow the instructions in the kit. And here's where everybody says, well, that doesn't work because my milling maybe left some undercuts and my night guard now doesn't fit. The nice part about the flexible is you can use just any warm water, frankly. We just use the scientific water bath because we had it. And we set it to 60 degrees. We drop it in there for 15 seconds, and then we stick it on the bridge. And then it adapts to the bridge. We just kind of squeeze the corners in and make sure it still has some retention, and they fit every single time. And here's the one that we did. Yes, by the time you're adding your ceramic or stain and glaze and stuff on top of the milling, not milling perfectly, you will maybe they won't fit perfectly, but by the time you're done with the water bath, they drop right on. So that's a nice added value for you in your lab because theoretically, this All-in-X case is you'll never see this patient again, right? If this goes well, they're going to have this for 20 years. It's not like you're going to see the next crown coming up. Zirconia, I like to use quality Zirconia. We have 3 brands here from Zon that I chose to show that all work very well in this workflow. We got the Zerlux, the Dental Direct, and a Monkerbach. The Zerlux, 2 choices. We have the 3Y Zerlux 16 Plus and 4Y Zerlux transitions. I'll show here, we in the lab use almost always 4Y at this point. There is some out there that say 4Ys aren't as strong. There are 4Ys available in the 1100, 1200 megapascal range, not the 7, 800 that some maybe other manufacturers put out there. So keep that in mind. Not all 4Ys are made the same. I like the 25 millimeter puck. The 30s, I've dipped my toes into some 30s and arches over time. If you need a 30 and maybe you're using 4Y that doesn't have a 30, then you just go grab from a different brand at that time that maybe has a 30 for that once in a lifetime restoration. Or maybe you cut the bar and you use 5 millimeters of bar that nobody will see unless you're fish hooking your lip up really high. Dental Direct, lots of choices here. You have the 3Y, you have the 4Y, pretty shaded, the 4Y white, and then the hybrid materials now. that are coming into the 3 and 5Y. They are plenty strong enough. As you're nesting some of these, and I show in one of the previous webinars that maybe if you have deep gingiva, you need to make sure you nest them properly in the restoration so you capture enough of the 3Y for your strength that you need for these restorations. But they are highly aesthetic as well. Amon Gerbach, 3, 4 as well. They have different variations of 4 that they've come out with over time. Bion is the newest variation, highly aesthetic as well. Has a 30 millimeter disc if you're into those. So those are all viable options for all in restorations. The mills, we use the 53 DC here. I've shown in other webinars, we've ran that thing for 24 hours straight, milling all in X restorations. There's a couple reasons for it. It is reliable, it's durable, and the tooling is available for it when it came out in the cam. So hyperDENT cam is something I've become really passionate about. And it wasn't always that way early on. I had to work myself into it because it was a transition point, just like anything. But this is, and I put asterisk now, turnkey solution. And I'm saying this because not that it's not, but I don't want anyone to believe that you just put your bridge in there and it comes out the other end of the mill. You still need to be a technician. You still need to know on how to set these up. But it is as turnkey as you get, and I'll show some of the reasons why. You get an improved end product. These things are great. They've created so many strategies for these. And there's great support with Follow Me in North America. And for me, it was an improved life balance. I was spending so much time calculating these jobs in other CAM systems and running simulations and recalculating and running simulations. And by the time I was done, there was one time early on before a lot of these strategies were available in tooling that I spent the entire day calculating a bridge before I would get to hit play on it. So that is really important to me, and that is why we have this specifically for our all-in-X restorations. The tooling that we use with it, we just use our Sierra primary tooling, the 2 millimeter, 1 millimeter, 0.6. They give a good result. We don't have any of the waves or chipping, and they last a good amount of time. The specialty tooling that hyperDENT brings in is this 1.5 bullnose, which when I first bought hyperDENT, they told me I needed a bullnose, and I said, I don't need no bullnose. I have flat burrs and round burrs, and I even had a 20 millimeter long burr, 1 millimeter round burr. But that burr is kind of universal. It takes the place of both those. It can mill round and flat, and it's 20 millimeters long. Most of you know that have tried to work on these cases, these direct to multi units. You then run out of milling length with your 13 millimeter Sierra 1 millimeter tool. So that bullnose comes into play there. The T cutters were like a dream come true when these came out. I had been looking at these years ago. Nobody had them integrated. As a matter of fact, it turned out they weren't even the right size to mill the zirconia with. So these make sure your screw seat is milled properly and help you with these bigger angles that we're trying to mill today, like the 25-degree angulated screw channels. Flat screw seats, just want to let you know, you cannot mill a flat surface with a round burr. Sure, as it gets long enough, maybe you get a flattish surface, but you cannot mill most of these cases with just a round burr. You need at least a flat burr. And when you angle the channel, here's even more of a reason. Even if you have that flat burr, you can't get into the corners of it, right? So there's an example of how it would look if you're trying to mill an angled screw channel with a flat burr. And here's where the T cutter comes in. And this thing is great. It comes up through the bottom and it cleans the channel out from left and right. When you are milling these direct to multi-unit and the screw needs an intimate, precise fit, this gives that to you. Make sure that is milled properly so that the screw seats, we're not dealing with tie bases where maybe you could ream out the hole a little bit by hand or you could punch the axis channel out in green state. You can't do that with these cases. You need to make sure that your tooling and your manufacturing is spot on. Here is an example of the flat screw seat. This is the desk screw seat. We have the 1 mm ball only. You'll see it's not seated fully. The flat end tool on a straight channel will seat properly, and then the bullnose and T-cutter obviously as well. But when you angle it, even with the the flat end tool, you'll see we are well away from seating on this case. That could leave a stress point on that edge. Who knows what that's going to end up long term. We want to make sure that these patients, I mean, remember, these patients are paying $30,000 for these sometimes. We want to make sure they get their money's worth. And we don't want to be we're the last step of the puzzle to this case. And we want to make sure it's done right for them. So then we have the bullnose and the T-cutter, and you see we get a perfect screw seat with those tools in hyperDENT. User-defined areas, very easy to get in there and mark your undercuts. It's just a real quick kind of a lasso tool, and then it actually does open up the offset so you don't have a collision. The sintering frame, I still use sintering frames with all my zirconia. I still run 12, 14-hour cycles with all my zirconia. I have shown some other slides and previous webinars about that. Here's just real quick. I don't get carried away. Here's my settings in hyperDENT. I don't have a lot of supports on the outside because I don't want to have to overcome those supports for undercuts. It leaves a messy surface. And then the back of that support structure does actually stay connected to zirconia. So that's all ours looks like when we mill them. Alias and geos. The alias is bringing the CAD information in to apply the geo. The geo is the set interface that hyperDENT has kind of approved for milling, and it brings in the strategy corresponds to it. And the nice thing about it is if maybe you need to switch screws, you don't have to go back to CAD either. You can just change it here. You need to make sure you have these settings in 3Shape. exocad, you would be bringing in your construction info file. Without these files, these extra files that are created, you're then kind of manually trying to apply these interfaces. So make sure you try to get these in with your STLs. And in the calculation phase, when you hit calculate and this thing says finished, it is finished. I'll tell you, I don't know the last time we had an error, an issue afterwards. And if we do, it's usually human error. Maybe we marked something that we shouldn't have, but it's not going to collide. It's going to mill out. These things are really spot on at this point, even more so from a year ago. Like when it says finished, we don't run simulations. It doesn't exist. So maybe we want to check our results, but we're not running simulations. When this thing is done, it is done. And it's quick. I don't have the time on this. Less than 10 minutes, most of our all-in-X's are calculated in. So that's kind of the end here. We did power through some of it pretty quickly. Here are some of the products we have. Now, everything we had here is available through Zon. They are your kind of all-inclusive total supplier as well of everything. You can get anything you need there. And most of this we have at some point over time. So not enough room on this page to put everything that Zon offers that was in this webinar. But just a little bit of the main ones that we go through and use. And this is our lab. If you guys need anything, feel free to reach out.
We really, really appreciate your time, Dan. It's always great having you on. Just a couple of more poll questions, and I want to let you know what's coming up next on Zon Academy. We do have tomorrow, which is August 21st, Thursday, special time, 4 p.m. Eastern, Pink Aesthetics for milled implant hybrids, made simple with Harvest Easy Gum and Zerlux PMMA. You can go to our website, go to the education tab, and just, you could sign up for this great webinar tomorrow afternoon, 4 p.m., right on our website. And then on September 4th, We have pink aesthetics for 3D printed hybrids made easy with Harvest Easy Gum and Rodent Titan. So we'd really love it if you join us for these two webinars coming up. Our Zon Road shows are in full force, and we're coming to a city near you. And in September, on September 18th and 19th, we're going to be in Lexington, Kentucky. And on September 18th, it's a full day of exocad, design hands-on from, 2 hours with all of our new users to 4 hours with all on X. And the next day, on the 19th, we have 15 manufacturer partners that are going to be joining us for like a mini trade show with all of our lectures being demonstration based. So we hope that you join us in Lexington. It's a beautiful city. And then in October, the 23rd and 24th, we'll be in Dallas, Fort Worth with basically the same roadshow. A day of exocad training on the 23rd and our roadshow with our manufacturer partners and demonstrations on the 24th. So we really hope that you'll join us. We really look forward to seeing you live and in person. I believe we have a question here. Okay, so Leo wants to know how we can get the recording from today. Everybody who registers for any of our webinars will get a recording the very next day or the day after in your inbox with the email that you provided for us when you registered. So you'll be able to watch, whenever you want, keep on going through and taking a look, and then it lives live in YouTube. So any of Dan's webinars that he's done in the past are there. You just have to go onto the Zon YouTube page, put in Dan's name, and you'll see all of the webinars that he's done for us. So if there's any other questions, you could type them in now. If not, we wish you a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. And I hope to see you all tomorrow with our Harvest and PMMA Easy Gum webinar. Thank you. Thanks,
Thank you.
Dan.
You're
We'll see
welcome.
you next time.
See you guys.
Have a great rest of the summer.